Coming up in today's video, our second video of the day here at Say It's Now by Chat Sports. We got some major injury updates and some injury news around a lot of players as we head into New Orleans Saints training camp, which is getting underway in less than a week, Saints fans. So be sure to subscribe and lock us in, because anytime that there's news, updates, or any information that you need to know because you're a part of the Who Dat Nation, we got you covered. So join the over 28,000 members of our squad and hit that sub button so that way you can be a more informed and a smarter Saints fan. Now, we got a lot to discuss, like I mentioned. I mean, 4 big names right here. We got Ryan Ramczyk, Chase Young, Chris Olave, Bub Means. We got a whole lot more, and we're going to get things started off with the offensive lineman, Ryan Ramczyk. The most important, the most notable injury news for all of these players. Ryan Ramczyk was placed on the reserve/PUP list, which means it's the physically unable to perform list. Now, what this means, and when you get moved over to the reserve/PUP list, basically it means that Ryan Ramczyk, he will not count against the active roster. So you could go and add some offensive linemen, you could bring in some more players, and you'll still have this, be able to add that player, and it won't impact the total amount of players on the roster. So he will also have to sit out the first 4 games at a bare minimum. And we've known this for some time, even dating back to late last season. He's been dealing with a very serious knee injury, and there's basically no cartilage left in his knee. And as an offensive lineman, and as a former offensive lineman, I can tell you right now, you want a little cartilage in your knees, because that shit hurts if you're just getting pounded, bone on bone. And I do believe that we may never see Ryan Ramczyk play another snap in the National Football League, and it is unfortunate because he is such a good player. But one important thing that we need to discuss is the financials, because as Saints fans, we all know the cap space is something we're always dealing with, and something that every time something happens makes an impact, whether it's good or bad. So I want to make one point very clear here. If Ryan Ramczyk were to retire, basically let's look at this as if the Saints were to cut him. The Saints would have $12.3 million in dead money with a big old goose egg in terms of cap savings this year. Now, if you were to cut him pre-June 1st next year, you're able to save at least a little bit of money. So the Saints keeping him on the books right now is actually a very strategic move, and it's a good move for the New Orleans Saints to do, so that way they can put him on the PUP list, throw him on the IR, and then boom, we can at least save a little bit of money next year. And the Saints, they redid his Ryan Ramczyk's contract very early on in order to prepare for this, because I think this was an unfortunate circumstance that the Saints kind of saw coming. So it's unfortunate, it stinks, and of course we wish nothing but the best to Ram. But I just want to ask you this question: will we ever get to see Ramczyk play again? Just give me a yes or a no in the comment section. I would love to see him play for the New Orleans Saints once again, but I'm also a firm believer in life. There are some things that are more important than your job, and at the end of the day, if you want to, have a busy relationship with your kids and be involved and all that kind of stuff, you can't really do that if you can barely walk around. So I understand Ryan Ramczyk wanting to put some things before football. Life is very important. Life is short, and it's important to live it to the fullest. And if you're just going to keep taking a beating and keep getting injured, there's really no point in continuing, just taking a beating. So let's get to an update around Chris Olave, because he was actually placed on the NFI list. And if you don't know what that means, it's the non-football injury list. So I'm not necessarily sure how long we should see him on the NFI list, but we do know that he's dealing with back tightness. And to be quite honest, I saw this report and I was like, it's just weird. Nick Underhill is a very credible and he's a very reliable source, but I think the idea of going on the NFI list because of back tightness, maybe in a week you're not feeling like that. Maybe you can come off the NFI list pretty soon. And to be honest and to be fair, when you do get put on the non-football injury list, you can come off of it at any time, and you can come off of it as soon as you clear your physicals and as soon as you're ready to roll, just like Bub Means did. And he just came off the list a couple days or today after being placed on the NFI list. And Bub Means is a player that I want to see be active with the Saints, but I don't necessarily know if he will have a huge role because he's a rookie and because he's a little bit buried on the depth chart. Now, Chris Olave, that's a very important player, and if he has a lingering injury, and this is something that continues to be a problem, that's something we got to monitor. However, I don't expect that to be anything major. I think that he'll be back pretty soon, and I think that we'll see number 12 making all sorts of crazy catches. Now, really quick, got to address it. It's Honesty Hour. Injuries. I know I'm just going to say what I think. Injuries fucking suck, man. I mean, I hate injuries. Like, when you're trying to be a sports fan and you're trying to watch your team play and you're trying to see your team go and win games and you have all this awesome momentum, you have all these fun players, you have all this excitement, and then injuries come along and just derail everything. Like, I go back and look at that 49ers Eagles NFC Championship from a couple of years ago. I mean, injuries completely ruined that game. And I just think just in football and in sports in general, injuries suck. I hate them. And if you're with me, like the video. But added to the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, Juwan Johnson. There's no mystery between, at least these two guys. Tano Passanio, we got some injury updates from him a while back. So we've known that he's been injured dealing with an Achilles. Nefi Sewell, he's also on the PUP list, as well as Chase Young. And we got an injury update around Chase Young that's actually pretty positive. But let's just remind you guys what's going on with all these players. Now, Juwan Johnson, he had foot surgery recently. He's continuing to heal and continuing to get healthy and try to get back on the field. And I would love to see Juwan Johnson healthy and ready to go and participating in training camp. But the timeline for him is there's not really a timeline. We don't really know. There's not a lot of reports out there. So when we do get an update, I'll let you know. When it comes to Tano Passanio, he's dealing with a hurt Achilles. That is something that we found out early into OTAs and minicamp. Dennis Allen spoke about it. We're not really sure how it happened. He's not necessarily sure how it happened. At least he didn't disclose that to media. But he's dealing with the hurt Achilles. Nefi Sewell, the linebacker, he tore his ACL during the 2023 season, so he's just trying to rehab and come back from that. And Chase Young, as we know, he had neck surgery after the Saints signed him. There was a whole thing about the Saints signing Chase Young, and it was super exciting. And it's like, now he has a neck injury, and he's dealing with that. And that everyone kind of got their feathers ruffled and got up in arms and whatnot. But then it comes out that the Saints actually had injury protections in the contract, and its contract is a lot more team-friendly than what was initially reported. So Chase Young, and specifically his injury update coming in from Nick Underhill, it doesn't sound like Chase Young's runway to returning to the field will be very long, which translation feels like he could return pretty quickly. Things are progressing well, and things are going good for the defensive end, and I believe this wholeheartedly. Having Chase Young return to the Saints roster and returning to training camp and returning as quick as possible, honestly, is huge. The sooner, the better, because you signed Chase Young to help with your lack of sack production. The more reps that Chase Young can get alongside Carl Granderson and alongside Brian Brzee, Cam Jordan, and all the other players on the Saints defensive line, the better. Chase Young is a very talented football player. He has a very high upside, and I'm very hopeful, and a lot of the reports coming from the Saints are that things are looking pretty good for Chase Young. He seems hungry. He seems ready to roll. He is aggressive. He's on a one-year deal. He's got a lot to prove, and let me remind you, this is still a really young player, and to be honest, I think he will have a very big impact for the New Orleans Saints. So I'm excited to see him get back to the team. Again, training camp is about a week from now, so we'll see if he's ready to go. We'll see if he's participating. The New Orleans Saints did post some pictures of him doing a private workout, just him and himself, at the Saints facility. So that was pretty cool to see as well a handful of weeks ago. But again, he's been at all of the facilities, he's been at practices, he's been at the stuff, he just hasn't been participating, so he's been around, he's doing the right stuff while he continues to rehab. But again, I hate injuries. It's the worst part of sports. It ruins everything. So if you're with me, just give me an F injuries in the comment section. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and check out our video about Justin Simmons. It's going to be pictured, somewhere on the screen right here. We put it out a couple hours ago. Ian Rappaport gave an update about the NFL free agent, and I think that the New Orleans Saints should go and sign him. So go check out that video, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.